All right, good afternoon. I congratulate those that stayed on a Friday afternoon. So today we're going to talk about you're lucky that you stayed, true opportunities, opportunities in media, and opportunities for independent agencies to make money in media. Would that be an okay subject? It's the subject we have, so you need to say yes. That'd be great. That's awesome. All right. Let me invite, why don't all three of you come, so we'll save some time, and I'll talk about all three of you. So joining me in the middle here is John Bond. I've known John for a long time. Today he's Chief Tomorrowist of Tomorro, without a W, the innovative marketing consultancy. John, some of you might know, is one of advertising and marketing industry's most recognized icons in the business. Icon means you've been around long enough.
Old, it means old.
Legend, icon, yes. He's co-founder of Kirschenbaum Bond & Partners, one of the great independent agencies in the world until bought by MDC, and still a great agency. But at Kirschenbaum Bond, he founded Media Kitchen, Varick Media, which was one of the first trading desks in the industry. He was CEO of Big Fuel, one of the first social media agencies, and today invests in many prominent ad tech companies like DataZoo, which was one of the first DSPs, Sonobi, Distillery, Simplify. He's one of the leaders also in this issue we talked about yesterday in transparency, having initiated Wide Ops, which the ANA introduces a bot fraud initiative. Over here close to me is Nigel Gilbert, who's VP of EMEA here at AppNexus. And AppNexus is really one of the, I think, the world's leading SSP. You'll confirm that, won't you? Sure. He's a digital pioneer. And prior to AppNexus, he served as head of Orange ad market, both in UK and France, for France Telecom. He was responsible for all commercial operations for Orange ad market. That's a real-time bidding exchange. Nigel is co-founder of, do I say Unanimous? Yeah. I did it. Unanimous. The first and largest digital publisher network in the UK. Commercial director of Unanimous. Nigel established and managed operations for eBay, BBC, Channel 5, and the London Stock Exchange. And then over on the far is Rob Webster. They did get your right picture up now. They got me right eventually. Yeah. Chief Strategy Officer of Crimtan, which is a leading agency, so you get the digital agency side and trading desk, both here in Europe and around the world. Rob has 17 years of ad tech expertise, gained from working with some of the world's largest advertisers, most recently data and technology director at Mediacom, so he knows the holding company business too. Rob is a regular speaker on Conference Circle and contributor to advertising media, and has worked with companies roles like at Unique Digital, Dakota, and Yahoo. Now I'm going to show you a couple slides just to set this up. Most of you know this. This is sort of, I think, AppNexus actually US provided us this chart. That's right, yeah. So this is sort of the addressable market industry. Global advertising sitting a little over $500 million, with digital about 150. This is all in US dollars, non-search and programmatic. In 4 years, 2019, thank goodness we have growth in global advertising for all of us in this room. And then, of course, no surprise, digital begins to become a bigger part of the share, 245 to 377. But look at this, both non-search growth, 12%, 21% CAGR, or double in 4 years, 62 million in programmatic media from today. That is amazing growth, and all of us need to know more about it. And this, it
was produced with IDC as well. It's not just an AppNexus estimate.
You wanted to make sure. Yeah. Well, it says up there Magna Global, and yeah.
Just wanted to make sure they got the the title rights in there.
And this is what we'd call sort of the ecosystem of this programmatic media business, which in itself is daunting just as a picture, right? I mean, you have the agencies, and I know we couldn't get all of you on the chart, but so we just went with what they provided. Trading desks, some agencies have trading desks, but trading desks, even some advertisers become trading desks like Netflix and Wayfair, some companies themselves. Then the bidders are the DSPs that use data in order to do this target marketing. And then the SSPs, that would be the platform that works with the publishers. And then finally, the publisher. So, and the advertiser isn't even on this chart. So if you put all that together, what do we have? About 6 levels of all sorts of things that happen before a dollar comes from an advertiser and then gets to a publisher. That seems like a lot of folks, a lot of channels to go through. Is all this necessary? Is it helpful? Nigel, why don't you take that? What do you think?
Is it necessary or helpful? Well, necessary, I guess, is subjective. Is it helpful? Yes. Let's take a step back from it for a moment. I mean, this isn't necessarily a discussion just on programmatic, but obviously there's been a lot of growth in that area. We would define programmatic at AppNexus as the application of data and technology with regards to the buying and selling of media. That's actually quite a sort of guiding principle of what we're discussing here. The application of data is critical, full stop. I think with regards to digital media, whether it be search, social, display, anything, certainly we'll see that in TV, we'll see that across the board. We're not talking about always the use of first party and so on. You guys will probably have a good handle on this, but data will make the experience better. People want to buy audiences, they want to buy intent. They don't necessarily just want to buy one-to-one, but they want to understand what the intent of that user is, and is the advertising relevant? There are, of course, examples where this has been mistreated. I'm sure we can all think of those. But the application of technology is also critical because it allows scale, it drives efficiency, and of course it elevates the individual. You could ask most agencies, even as recently as a year ago, you could probably ask a bunch of them now. And they might still have people who check creatives, who are looking for viruses or malware or checking tags that it clicks through to the right place. Why should you have to employ people that do those things? Pulling reports, data, aggregating information. That's the automation part.
Well, let me ask you, it could be either of you here, just because there might be varying degrees of understanding of all this, what would be your short elevator speech of what programmatic media is as opposed to other media? Is it it's basically instead of going direct to a publisher, it's the following of an individual, right?
Yeah, I think programmatic is really where the machines are making some of the decisions. And where you're using connectors rather than using paper-based IOs and telephone calls. And I think as well, people think this is very, very complex, but in some ways it's actually easier than what we had before. Before we had the world of multiple networks given on plans, paper-based IOs. I remember working on a Sky Media plan with 15 networks, all doing different variations of the same thing, all on there. Huge amount of wastage, which is actually largely solved by this problem. And I think provided we're understanding what each layer does in the journey and why it's adding value and that it works properly, then I think actually this system is quite a good one and one that will consolidate and become very effective across all forms of media.
So the benefits of programmatic. Anyone else wants to comment on that? You think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hyper relevance,
Right.
both from a targeting standpoint of who you're talking to and when you're talking to, and theoretically from a creative standpoint, though I think the creative side is less developed.
So this landscape we're looking at, is it going to change much in the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nigel? Or?
I mean, I think this landscape, we've forgotten a few layers. There's a huge data layer that already exists.
Yep.
Companies like sort of Oracle or Lotame or IOTA.
Yeah.
And I think that layer is only going to grow in importance. Because this layer, or it has data baked into it. A lot of that data actually sits outside of there, and that's very important for effective media. And as you're alluding to there, the creative layer. It's all very well finding the right people, but if you want to get the right ad in front of them, you need to really integrate all of that with creative in a very seamless fashion. So it's going to change in that way, more complexity, but I also think it's going to get a lot easier to navigate. I think a lot of the tools that pretty much everyone on this panel is working on are all designed to help make marketing decisions faster and easier in programmatic. So that it's all about marketing rather than trying to fight programmatic technicalese, I guess.
You shook your head right away when I said yes, that there'd be change.
I think there has to be change. I mean, a lot of the reasons you see so many new companies emerging in the value chain is because, of course, there's enormous growth forecasted. It's been quite hard for publishers, certainly on the right-hand side here, to capture a lot of that growth if you're not Facebook or if you're not Google. You don't have that data or that concept of the single sign-on or the notion of the walled garden. I mean, they're aggregators of audience or aggregators of data. But on the other side, the agency side, I actually think programmatic created an enormous opportunity for independence. There was another, effectively a new type of business. I think Crimtan represents that new type of business. And of course, you're responsible for a lot of these kind of businesses as well since then, called the independent trading desk. And AppNexus was very much at the vanguard of that by creating tools that allow them to not only participate in this kind of market. If you have access to a DSP or a demand-side platform, all of a sudden you can log in and buy media from pretty much any company you want to. The clearing is taken care of. There's no agency commissions to worry about. You can apply your data to that campaign. You can build tools that differentiate you from another company. And we've seen an enormous amount of this. And actually in Europe alone, in the last 24 months, we've had 3 AppNexus clients be acquired by those holding companies on the left, all upwards of 40, 50 million pounds each, that didn't exist 5 years ago.
So you mentioned the independent agency, but it seems with all this technology, analytics that we need, I mean, aren't the holding companies going to be the winners here? How does an independent agency win in this marketplace, you think? John, what do you think?
Well, my feeling about it is you've got 2 variables. You have a lot of agencies got into this and resell DSPs and mark them up and don't provide a lot of value. I think that'll go away. So number 1 is you have to provide a lot of value, because I think the holding companies are good at it. And then the second area is transparency. So I think they're obviously not all that transparent. So if the sweet spot I think for the agency is high value add and highly transparent. So you beat the ones that aren't that good because you're high value, and you beat the holding companies because you're transparent, and that's that sweet spot.
Well, I'd add a skill set to this as well, because one of the issues we've seen it aggressively in the UK, but certainly across France, Germany, is that holdcos are at the mercy of a fairly rigid salary structure.
Yeah.
And you come across a 26-year-old, 27, they're always 26 or 27, I don't know why I guess there's the example. Or 12 if you're in the Netherlands.
So
they're about 12. Yeah, it's an excellent market for that. But they can't hire those people. You know, they're not able to. If you've got a graduate with a strong analytics background and the ability to apply that data and those campaign strategies and even build some custom tools, algorithms, the agencies can't afford those people. They just actually can't afford to hire them. So they tend to buy the company to get the people. It's actually one of the main reasons they do.
Especially if you have a performance element to compensation, then you can pay the stars more. Yeah. There's a delta between the high and the low. I think the other thing that's going to happen is more specialization. When you look at that, infrastructure, and yes, you can say that big companies will consolidate. I mean, you're on 2 sides. You're on the SSP and the DSP.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't put that plug in. I'll put it in. But there'll be more people that cut steps out, right? Yeah. But on the other side, I think from the agency standpoint, independent agencies saying, hey, look, I'm going to configure a trading desk for specific vertical, retail, that I'm really good at. And I'm going to tune the algorithm to heighten actions people have done in the last 15 minutes when it looks like they're in shopping mode, you know what I mean? That sort of thing, and I'm going to brand it, the retail desk or something. That's something people haven't done, and I would highly encourage any independent agency to zero in and narrow your focus a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've lived in that world where trying to be at the holding company and try and offer that service. Holding companies are very good at doing it in pockets, but across a whole range of, and the point that was made earlier about staffing is very true. In an agency of 1,000 people, probably less than 10 really got programmatic. And those 10 will split across the top 3 or 4 clients very well. But that leaves dozens of other clients who really aren't getting the service they need in programmatic. Mm-hmm. And that's ripe for competition from the independent sector, because these are still very, very big advertisers. And I think it's very, very hard for the big companies to kind of offer that level of service across their whole portfolio. It's really not their model to do that. And through expertise, through technology now is much easier. There are people you can approach to get that in. It shouldn't be scary for any independent agency, and one which is a real opportunity, I think, to grow out and have a real speciality in.
Well, think about the acquisition of media as well. Historically, if you're a large agency, of course, you're going to almost entirely leverage the benefits of scale across your whole organization. That is the model, is heft, right? Being able to hedge media and effectively resell it to the client. Yep. But if you're buying impression by impression, if you figure out that actually you're interested in what someone's done in the last 5 minutes, or what they've been interested in over a period of 4 weeks, and then you're bidding on that particular moment, you've got just as much chance of buying that impression as they have. In actual fact, you've got a much better chance because on the whole, agencies are not particularly good, large agencies are not particularly good at managing and leveraging data. It's not a core competence.
Well,
so it really has leveled the playing field in a lot of ways.
We have all kinds of independent agencies here. Some have a media operation. Some may already be active in programmatic media. I'd venture to guess many aren't yet. How many have a media operation as part of their agency? Yeah, that's about right. So you start that's you're participating in media. How many are generally creative agencies and building brand for clients?
Yeah.
So for these folks, is this a subject that they should be just sort of looking at their emails right now and hoping the next subject comes, or what's their opportunity?
I think for a creative agency, you have to leverage creative. What a surprise! And I think in programmatic, the emphasis goes on data and the media and all technology, and I believe that creative is the red-haired stepchild in that one world, and to leverage your strength to figure. I mean, look, you guys know that great banner campaign that you got inspired? No, there isn't one. Never has been. The other area which would be great is production, especially in video, to have vertical integration, because you need to make a lot of stuff, and agencies can't make a lot of stuff inexpensively and well. So to take media and creative and production and put all those three vertically integrated, that's something independent agency could do really well and have an advantage.
So you're saying this could be a driver of creativity, not a squelcher of creativity?
Yeah, it could be a driver of creativity, and also the creative's not good. That generally goes here. I mean,
right now,
you can only optimize what you're given. You can optimize crap and make it a little less crappy, but
I think, sorry, but just to take that further, I think in the past, creative agencies have been very good at drawing pictures and not very good at using data to then sort of understand how that's going to impact the message.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm being a bit too simplistic. But I think now there's a real chance to sort of take that user-led data that Nigel was referring to, understand the user, and then pick what is the right creative for them, and actually have a media plan that could be more creative-led than inventory-led. So actually, you could very much find that in recent years, the buying agencies had the whip hand. That should, I think, be threatened for many clients by the creative agency, where actually the creative execution is at least as important, if not more important, than the buying execution.
Yeah.
David Baldwin said before, testing creative, out their ideas, which is a great. So a creative agency can sell things better using this, because you can throw stuff out and prove it works before you ask them to bet on something.
Well, programmatic has had to scale based on standardization. Obviously, if you're laying pipes for software, you need a level of standardization. So invariably, the growth of programmatic has grown on the back of a banner or a skyscraper. There's nothing unusual about that. There is some creativity involved there, but again, not a great deal. If you're going to see programmatic grow from 60%, 70% of display, which is where it is now, certainly in the UK, it's maybe 25, 30 in more brand-led markets like Germany and France. I say brand-led, UK is just very offer-led, just based on the behavior that we demonstrate in markets like this. But at the same time, perception is still out of whack. I heard an MD of one of the largest agencies in the UK on a panel about a year ago say, yeah, sometimes we want to do something programmatic or we want to do something creative. I'm like, right. Let's talk about that for a minute, because it's execution. If we go back to the definition, it's at the mercy of this concept of RTB, which is the trading mechanism. It's not the application. I don't know any marketer or any creative builder or anybody who wants to run any kind of advertising. Advertising is there to influence consumer behavior. That's the definition. That doesn't want audience information. So the application of data is important 100%. 100%. All marketing should have some kind of data applied to it, whether it's binary data like reach or audience data or actual user and one-to-one data. You can still build a brand on a one-to-one basis, but it's harder. When you're building a brand, you want one-to-many or you want many-to-many. And you need the reach. But the actual execution itself, the treatment, is now becoming more important because everybody's doing programmatic now. You fast forward, in the Netherlands it's 80%. In the UK it's 60, 70. You fast forward 2 years, it's going to be 80 or 90. So the question is, how do you differentiate? And you differentiate through creative, leveraging brand, and the standardization part goes away because the pipes are laid, and you can now start to evolve it into the next stage. So getting an understanding of what's possible now is going to be very, very important, because in a year, if you've not already got that groundwork in place, you're probably going to be behind.
So that's fascinating. The pipes are laid to many, and it's an individualized pipe, basically, which then, if I understand what you're saying, clients will need more content that is customized toward the various categories or various criteria. So instead of creating maybe a television spot or such, I may create 20 or 30 or 40 pieces of content different for that individual targeting. So we spent the last few years making sure we can target individuals, and that's going to get even better and better. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is now, almost if I understand, the next evolution is what is going to be the content and how do I match content with that particular audience. Is that right? So,
well, anything can be served programmatically. Content is served in exactly the same way an ad is served.
Yeah.
In actual fact, I think content will become increasingly served in this way. This notion of MarTech and AdTech is a very blurred line.
Yeah.
MarTech is just simply another form of delivery. I mean, the biggest MarTech, there's an enormous MarTech exit 2 or 3 months ago. Marketo, it's just an email delivery company.
Yeah.
You know, that's MarTech. I mean, isn't that AdTech? I don't know. It's still CRM. You're still delivering things to your users. And a page loads. The decision is made in milliseconds about what to show you. Content is much lighter in file size than an ad. That can be delivered just as efficiently, in actual fact, more efficiently and more quickly using these mechanisms than the previous MarTech mechanisms that are being used now. Native ads is a good example of that. You can scrape the page for the contextual content of a page in milliseconds. Oh, this is about an oil spill. Don't serve my BP ad. Don't serve this content next to that. Serve a much bigger one. Don't serve this content at all to that user, because they're going to be sensitive to it. Lots and lots of applications, but content is, of course, the next step. It's being done already by a handful of partners.
So how would these agencies potentially get involved in this? I mean, what sort of people, technology? Do they have to wait and spend a couple $1 million to US to get started? Is there some way to participate? What kind of people, what kind of technology, what kind of partnerships? And frankly, what are the real margins in this if they get involved?
I think everyone needs to understand how much they want to control it and how much they want to partner out. And that applies to advertisers too. There's an awful lot of talk about advertisers running their own trading desks, but do they really want to have a team of programmatic experts and have that infrastructure? But for independent agencies, which was the question, it's how much do they want to do it themselves? How much do they want to hire and train people? How fast do they want to do it? I mean, talented graduates can learn programmatic within, I would say, 6 to 12 months if they're well taught.
So if they want to do it fast, they don't have a year or so, they don't have €1 million.
Well, then you talk to Crimtan, I think.
No, but I don't think people know that. Everyone knows that. How would they start?
I think the important thing is to build on strength. If you're a social media agency, then do paid social. And do native advertising, and it's like one step away, and then you get good at that and you can keep going. If you try to do something 3 steps away from your strength, you're an independent agency without a lot of resources. It's a great way to lose money. And
no one's looking for a great way to lose money. I would say you've still got to focus on what you're good at. Programmatic is a form of execution. So as an agency, whether it's creative or whether or not you're media, what is it that you're good at? Are you good at seller relationships? Are you good at big ideas? Are you good at client management? Are you good at reporting, analysis? And you can leverage all of those in this kind of environment. So it's the first step is still very much the same one. If creative is what you do, and that's where your speciality is, then that's great. Look at native, look at contextual.
Premium
look
inventory,
at premium
right?
inventory.
It's not just
high
remnant bad inventory. Now
Exactly.
you can get premium inventory and move over and take some of the brand dollars that normally, right? And that's all happening.
Absolutely. So I don't think it actually changes. I think the beauty of an independent agency is there is always that point of differentiation. And all of those things can still be leveraged in exactly the same way. It's table stakes to execute campaigns in this way. That's what I'm saying. But it doesn't mean that what's actually being bought and sold and how it's being considered and planned is necessarily any different.
Well, I knew since we only had a half hour, we couldn't do a Q&A on this, but right, I don't think we can ask for questions. So we'll all be around. I think the message you're hearing, and both John and I have been in the independent agency business a long time. It evolves and evolves all the time. These are areas you can participate in. We have client relationships. We understand what drives big ideas for our clients. And by looking for certain partners, believing what we can do from a strategic standpoint, we all too can be involved both in the financial rewards and the growth of what's going on in programmatic media. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.